Welcome back to the Sense of Life podcast. My name's Cody,
And I'm Joe.
and we're back. It's been a minute. Um, so little housekeeping here. We missed a week. Sorry about that. And it's for a few different reasons. So basically we were going to take this week off, right? And then something happened. I don't remember what, but we ended up not being able to record last week. So we ended up taking last week off. And then we were gonna record at some point, and then Canada was being invaded by Poseidon or something. I don't know. And
Well, that was yesterday. That was the
yeah,
tropical storm, whatever the hell it was. I can't keep up with those names. Probably because I never check in the first place.
yeah. Same. Although I live in Indiana, so tropical storms are non-existent. So
fair.
So basically, we were gonna take a week off this week, but
we ended up
we ended up taking it last week, and we didn't have a podcast to say, "Hey, we're taking the week off next week," because the week off ended up having to happen that week.
Yeah,
part of it is I am doing a play right now, so my schedule's a bit tight for. This is the last week it'll be tight for that, at least. It might get tight for other reasons, but we'll figure it out. But yeah, we're back. We're talking 3 movies. We did a triple feature.
Yeah, we're going into the Schraderverse
into the Schraderverse,
as we had come up with the name of this video like a week and a half ago.
Yes, yeah. And so we're talking about 3 movies based on scripts from Paul Schrader. The Yakuza from 1974, directed by Sidney Pollack. Taxi Driver from 1976. I think Martin Scorsese's best movie. Although I haven't seen all of the bangers. So, right. 1977's Rolling Thunder, directed by John Flynn. And I guess we'll just jump into it.
Yeah. So I assume we're just going to start with the Yakuza because that's the oldest and that's the one we watched first.
Yeah, might as well.
This, I think your Letterboxd review of this was that this film is not beating the coolest movie ever allegations.
Yeah.
And that is correct because this movie it fucking rules, dude.
It's so good.
Yeah,
so good.
Like, the first opening shots of the movie.
Yeah.
From that moment, I was like, okay, hold on, we gotta pay a bit more attention here.
Let him cook. Let him
cook. Yeah. And
go off.
Yeah, it was just like a fantastic, kind of like a slow burn action movie.
Yeah. I think all 3 of these could fall into that category, slow burn action movie.
Sure.
Which I think it's actually kind of serendipitous because I just watched a movie that I think could have benefited from that. The 70s, I think, is the action movies of the 70s, and maybe you could argue action movies pre-80s generally, if you can even call them action movies. They're slow burn because the action is not the reason the movie exists. It just happens because it needs to, because the story demands it.
Yeah.
And I just watched this really quite good movie called Kinjite, some Japanese word that means forbidden subjects, and it's called Kinjite Forbidden Subjects, by J. Lee Thompson. It was his last movie. Kind of a freaky movie about busting a child prostitution ring, which kind of makes it in league with Taxi Driver in a way.
So if that's a Japanese word, that would be kinjite.
Yeah, kinjite. Yeah.
Not kinjite.
And
that's the autism taking over.
Yes, yeah. But it it has these action scenes that are really kind of bad, and they can take you out of the movie.
Yeah.
But everything else in the movie is so good that it just brings you right back in once the action's over. So I think it would have benefited more from this kind of more low key, um, tight, and minimalist action that's common in 70s movies, where it's like you kind of build toward one final big thing, but it's
Right.
over in like 2-3 minutes max. And it's fucking amazing, which is basically Rolling Thunder, which we'll get to.
Yeah,
um,
that movie was wild.
yeah, but yeah. So I just Kinji. It's quite good. It's on Tubi. I'd recommend it,
Oh,
but that's not what we're talking about today. Um, the Yakuza, directed by Sidney Pollack, who grew up in my neck of the woods. He he was born in Lafayette, Indiana. I don't think he stayed there long because they moved to Los Angeles. But um, yeah, it's a. So what kind of happens in this movie? Like, this is
what
half
happens
me
in the
trying to
movie?
remember.
Yeah, usually we
It's
don't
been it's
have.
been like a week and a half since we watched it.
Yeah, usually we don't have like a week and a half, uh, between watching a movie and recording the podcast. So it might be a bit fuzzier than our normal recollection, which isn't
Yeah,
always the best either. But
yeah.
hey,
We just kind of talk about it and hope you watch it.
yeah, yeah.
Starring
It's
Robert Mitchum, who was also in another J. Lee Thompson movie, Cape Fear, which was also remade by Martin Scorsese. The weird connections I'm making today. Um, this
yeah.
was written by Paul, of course, written by Paul Schrader, and it looks like Robert Towne would have done some uncredited rewrites.
Hmm.
Whenever you see unless it's Chinatown, whenever you see Robert Towne, even Chinatown, well, no, unless it's Chinatown, if you see Robert Towne as a writing credit, he probably just did uncredited rewrites, which is what he did that a lot in the 70s, and he made a lot of money doing it.
Yeah.
Um, and which is interesting because here on the Wikipedia, originally director Robert Aldrich, who was big in the 50s and the 60s, was going to direct, but he did not like the script, which is interesting seeing Robert Towne rewriting it. So maybe Sidney Pollack also wasn't a big fan of the total script. Um, I don't know. I'm just kind of spitballing here. But he wrote this with Leonard, his brother, Paul Schrader.
Okay.
Paul and Leonard. I think this is the only one they wrote together of this trilogy. I want to say. Yeah. Yeah. And it's about a retired detective who is called upon by an old friend who's been doing a business with the Yakuza gangster. And then shit goes down.
Yeah. The I guess the basic plot kind of revolves around the main character played by Robert Mitchum,
Yeah.
who is this like he kind of works with this dude who's like a kind of like I guess he's like a smuggler kind of thing. He's supposed to be selling weapons to the Yakuza, and they the deal is like falling apart because I think it's explained partway through the movie that the reason the Yakuza think that he's like holding onto the weapons that he's supposed to give to them, but in reality he never had the money to buy the guns in the first place. Like he's just been barely hanging on. Um, so in response to him not giving them the weapons, they kidnap his daughter. I think that's what the plot point was. And
Yeah.
they he basically gets his friend Harry, who is Robert Mitchum's character. He kind of sends him to Japan to conduct some sort of rescue attempt on his daughter. And Harry he has like this interesting backstory because he was a Marine stationed in Japan after the after World War II during the American occupation, and he like kind of fell in love with and took care of this woman who I think her name was Aiko. Aiko was her name.
Yeah.
And she, I think she was like initially her daughter was really sick during the occupation, and she stole medicine, and it was his job to like turn her over, and he decided not to, and kind of helped her bring her daughter back from the brink of death. And so the first thing he does naturally when he goes back to Japan is immediately go and visit this woman because that's just the kind of thing he would do. And it's explained in the movie that it's her brother is like this guy that used to be a member of the Yakuza, but he left, which I'm not sure if you can do. I'm not sure if you can leave the Yakuza. It might be like a mafia thing where they're like, you're not allowed to leave, but I might be wrong because they are very different from the Italian-American mafia in a lot of different ways. But and he's running like this like dojo kind of thing in, I think it was in Kyoto. So like I think the main plot takes place in Tokyo, but like he briefly goes to Kyoto to get this Ken character. And when I had seen Ken when we were watching this movie, I was like, man, this guy looks familiar. I think I've seen this guy in something before, because I've watched, some like older Japanese movies.
Yeah.
And I started looking through his Wikipedia, and I was like, fuck, man, I can't find this guy anywhere. I don't think I've seen any of these movies that this guy was in. He really wasn't that, like... he didn't really play that many main characters, from what I can see here. And then I realized it was just because he was in a banner picture on Twitter of a guy that I follow, and I see that picture all the time. I was like, oh, that's where I saw that from. Okay.
Oliver Gia, I think.
Yeah. Shout out to Oliver Gia.
Yeah.
He does
not a friend of the pod, just a cool tweeter. I don't know.
A cool tweeter, a poster. And because Ken used to be part of the Yakuza, he kind of like gets his help in this rescue mission, and they rescue the daughter, but in the process they kill like, how many of the Yakuza did they kill? Like 3 or 4? I know Ken chops off one of their arms with a sword, like as he's about to fire his gun. But they kill a couple of them. It was a really cool shot. I like how they had the hand fly through the air and pull the trigger at the same time.
Yeah.
That was badass. So like they conduct this rescue operation, but it is found out pretty obviously who conducted the rescue, and that Ken was involved, and that they had killed some of the main Yakuza boss, like antagonist of the film, is a guy named Tono.
Yeah.
And Tono basically retaliates against this rescue attempt. He gets to Tanner, and he basically tells him like he finds out the truth from Tanner, that he actually just never had the money to get them the guns in the first place. So to kind of take pity on his friend, because despite kidnapping his daughter, I guess Tono and Tanner were friends. He basically just tells him like, yeah, just kill your that hairy fella and Ken, and we'll be good to go. And there's kind of a funny moment in this movie when Harry realizes that Tanner is the one that was trying to kill him, and there's actually a kind of cool scene. They're in like a Japanese bath house kind of thing. They're just sitting there, and the would-be assassin like flies at him through the water with a knife and stabs him in the side. And he kind of like takes the knife out and stabs that guy, and then he's like asking him who sent him, and then he finds out that it was Tanner. And you're like, oh, so Tanner is going to be like this real big antagonist alongside Tono in this movie. And then like a scene later is the scene where Harry goes and kills Tanner. And it's like a shootout that lasts like 30 seconds. He just kills him that quickly.
Yeah, it's that kind of 70s, like really quick but really effective action. That's really cool sometimes.
Yeah, it's kind of badass that a dude who was like, how old was Robert Mitchum when that movie came out? Like
He was old.
He was like 60, I think. He's like maybe late 50s, potentially in his 60s, but like he looked old. And seeing like this kind of old, grizzled, ex-detective, ex-marine kind of just full badass mode. He has like 2 revolvers in that scene. He like bursts through the door and just starts blasting everybody. It was it was just so like it kind of just defies your expectation of what's going to happen with this Tanner character, because he's immediately killed off, and then Harry just kind of goes back to this house that they've been hanging at, and he's just like, "Yep, I killed him." Like, oh fuck. Oh, and the house they were hanging out at is owned by like this like weird Jewish weeb guy.
Yeah, like Woody Allen or whatever.
It's just like this like really Jewish guy that's just hanging out, and he owns a house in Tokyo, and he's just got like he's got like a set of samurai armor. He's got a bunch of katanas and wakizashis and tantos on the wall. He's got like a wall covered in like Sengoku period matchlock rifles. It's like, dude, what the fuck?
Just weaponized autism.
Yeah. And he has a cat as well. And there's like a part where they get attacked in his house, and he's upstairs holding the cat, and he's basically just like, "Oh God, stop destroying my stuff! Oh God,
what are they doing here? Oh my God!"
There's just shit around his house is just getting destroyed. And oh my! We were laughing because, like, obviously the scene. I don't think the scene is meant to be as funny as we found it. Yeah, but like, obviously there was a comedic element because, like, just some like scrawny bug man, like screeching in the background of the movie as stuff is going down.
Just getting fucking like
killed,
slaughtered. And there is this kind of like brief subplot of Robert Mitchum's character, Harry's name. He had this guy come with him that was
Dusty.
Told by Tanner was told by Tanner to watch Harry, and then after Tanner gets killed, Dusty comes clean to Harry. They decide to keep him on, and Dusty was getting into this like little tryst with the
daughter,
with Aiko's daughter.
Yeah. I can't remember what her name was.
Hanako.
That's right. Okay, yeah.
Hanako.
Okay.
And so they were kind of into each other. And then at this shootout scene, I know he ends up dying by, I think, the one dude like stabs him with like the katana or
yeah, his death was like really cinematic because he gets stabbed in the stomach with like a little, I think it was like a wakizashi or something. It looked like a shorter sword, or maybe even like a dagger.
Yeah, maybe.
But like he's laying on the floor with like this dagger just sticking out like directly out of the center of his stomach, and there's like kind of a low angle, there's like a low shot where like it's kind of just like his body on the ground and the sword sticking directly up, like almost to the top of the screen. Very cool shot. But yeah, Hanako also ends up dying in that fight as well.
In a kind of confusing scene.
Yeah, because to my understanding, the guy that kills Hanako does so in his like death spasm, because like he has a gun in his hand and he gets killed, like, and then he fires his gun and that kills her. And
it did not register to me that she had been shot.
Like, it doesn't
at any point until it comes up to her, and I'm not sure if I had missed something. Yeah, I think Josh, friend of the pod, Josh.
He had to point it out in the chat when we were watching the movie when she got shot, because it doesn't. I guess you could. It is implied because the guy gets shot and then he fires his weapon, and one could be like, well, you know, a stray bullet hitting someone is a likely possibility in just like a hellish gunfight like that. So but they don't really like, I guess, using cinematic language kind of show you that she was shot until she's on the ground dying, like after everything went down. So,
interesting scene, a little bizarre, but
Yeah.
so the two kids end up dying, basically.
Yeah, and that's kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
And it's also kind of this is a plot point that kind of comes up partway through the movie as well, is that Eiko is not Ken's sister, and basically like this whole thing with her and Harry during the Japanese occupation. Um, what what happened was Ken is actually her husband, and he was
Yeah.
off fighting in World War II, and then he was taken prisoner, and when he was released and he came back to Japan, he saw his wife, with the enemy, I guess you could frame it that way, because he was American, and so it's like his wife is I don't know if she was ever sleeping with the enemy per se, but there was definitely like a romantic connection there, and
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure they fucked.
yeah, all right,
I think that
fair enough.
there was definitely a cuck undertone thing going on.
yeah, that was the part where you're like, oh shit, they cucked Ken. That's awful.
But it was like an accidental cuck. Like it was like they thought he was dead, and also he didn't know that they were married.
Right, and then, oh yeah, it was thought that he was dead, wasn't it? Because he spent. I think he was like, they kind of referenced that there was like that famous story in the 70s of he was like the last Japanese soldier to formally surrender in World War II, and he surrendered in like 1973. I don't know if you know about this guy. It was it was this Japanese guy that was stationed in the Philippines, I think, and they basically were like, him and like a couple other guys were in the jungle, and leaflets were like dropped from planes being like, the war's over, you can surrender now, and they basically just thought it was a trick, and like one by one his friends in his like unit either died in shootouts with the police, because the police were like, okay, these Japanese soldiers are like decades away from the war and they're still like raiding farmers and like burning rice fields and shit, like so either they died or like would walk out of the jungle and surrender, but this guy was like the last one, and it took until like 1973 and his former commanding officer, who was like now an ancient old man, to come out and be like, listen, you idiot, the war's over, get out here. And so I guess they might have been like kind of riffing off of that, because I think it was also part of Ken's backstory that he had spent like a bit of time being like a holdout after the war. I might be just misremembering that, but
maybe makes sense to me.
There's like a weird kind of relationship between Ken and Harry, because Harry took care of his wife and saved his dying child during the occupation, but he also had sex with his wife. So
also took care of his wife.
Yeah, so it's like he has this sort of obligation to like repay to him, because he did him a favor by saving his wife and saving his daughter, but he also doesn't like him because of the fact that he was romantically involved with her. And so like him joining Harry in this rescue attempt was his way of paying off that debt to Harry. And I just like the fact that he came back from the war and saw that his wife was, with an American, and instead of just like coming clean with the truth that like, hey, that's my wife, he's just like, ah, my good sister, how are you? And then he just leaves to fucking Kyoto. Like he just won't admit that he was wronged. He won't just publicly, he won't say it. It has to be like kind of revealed to Harry. I think it was Ken's brother tells him this. Because Ken's brother is like this other high up figure that is occasionally met with in this movie, but he doesn't really do anything else. He's kind of just in a couple scenes. So yeah, I know there's a trend with these three movies where like the final scene of each one is like a near suicidal, like an attack on a compound.
Yeah, yeah.
And in this one it's Harry and Ken going after Tono in his little, like, I don't even know what it was. It was like probably just his house, I would have to guess.
Right.
And it's like Harry's running around with a shotgun, just like blowing people away, and and Ken is running around with a sword, like
Slicing people,
dueling people.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like that's the difference between the United States and Japan, is like, you know, like the one-on-one, like face-to-face fighting each other with swords, like warrior culture kind of thing going on with these Yakuza and their like code of honor.
Yeah. And the gorilla got the fucking shotgun blowing some motherfuckers away.
Ken running around. There's points where he shoots it with one hand.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Blowing people away. And I think you had mentioned this when we were watching the movie, that you found it kind of neat that the Yakuza code is kind of like they view themselves in the same vein as like the samurai code of
of
in
fact,
Bushido.
on the release poster, it says just right up above the image Yakuza, and then the image, and says 100 years ago they were called samurai.
I mean, they weren't, but you know.
Yeah. I mean, it's a marketing poster, man.
This is yeah. I know. It would be the thing about like the Yakuza and samurai is that the samurai code was Bushido, which means like the way of the warrior, and or like the warrior's path, and the Yakuza one was called Gokudo, which means like the extreme path. And that's what they called it. They didn't necessarily always call themselves Yakuza. They oftentimes called themselves Gokudo, like the extreme path, which is a badass name for like your organization. It's like, I live the extreme life. It's like that fucking episode of SpongeBob where Sandy is taking SpongeBob around, and it's like the arm cruncher, like she's just living extreme.
Yeah. And like he does like the trick on the seashell going off the ramp, and then she's like, you fall on your butt, it'll cushion your fall. Like this? Yeah.
And his bones are like sticking out of the top of his
head. No, his and this might be a different episode, but his lower body just shatters.
Oh, right. Yeah, I do remember that now. Yeah. Okay. Just random SpongeBob tangent here for the climax of this film.
We always got to do it, you know.
Yeah, it is like a fantastic like final fight, because you get like the cool, you know, like squibs and, you know, like little pyrotechnics going off to like blow up sections of the wall and stuff. And then you've also got like the actual sword fighting going on at the same time. There's a really cool mix of like modern, the modern way that, I guess not modern anymore, because now the way we shoot action is everything is CGI, but modern for the time, of like squibs and like little pyrotechnics blowing up chunks of the set, which you just don't see anymore. And then like the sword fighting stuff was really awesome too. And
just a really solid movie, like pretty much perfect movie. No notes, go off king. I think it's pretty clear, at least it was pretty clear to me watching these three movies, and we still got two more to talk about. But Paul Schrader, I think, is much better as a writer than a director. I don't know if you've seen many Paul Schrader directed movies. I know we watched one, which was pretty bad. Touch. And that was Paul Schrader.
Shit, I forgot.
And that movie was kind of bad.
Yeah, that was kind of bad, wasn't it? Oh my god.
Yeah,
it's been a while.
And he's got a few that I'd like to watch. There's Mishima that everyone talks about. There's his remake of Cat People, and American Gigolo. But even like people that like some of Paul Schrader's movies will say like, yeah, he's decent as a director, he's good as a writer, but like he has this problem where like his endings are always kind of nonsense and they don't really come together.
I thought the endings
I
came together for all three of these movies, personally.
Yeah, when he's writing.
When he's writing,
Yes.
when he's directing, it's a different story.
When he's directing, it's a different story.
Fair enough.
The movie Hardcore, I think, is the big example because everyone likes hardcore now. And I watched it in another server, and I was like, it was good for like the first 2/3, and then the last third, I think Quentin Tarantino says this. It just no sense. Like, not even sure what's happening. Not even sure why it's happening.
It's kind of like my criticism of a lot of J horror. Is that like the last third never makes sense? They never stick the landing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even the good ones.
Yeah. Even the good ones, yeah. We didn't really comment on the very ending of this movie, which is like these two different scenes where they meet with Ken's brother, and then Ken does the Yakuza thing of like cutting his pinky off.
Yes, yeah.
And then,
that was cool.
Then the final scene of the movie is they go back to I think it's that same Jewish weeb guy. I think they go back to his house.
Yeah.
And then Harry also cuts his pinky off as like a way of atoning to Ken. So it's like two bros that just cut their fingers off
5 feet apart because they're not gay. You know?
Yeah. Two bros cutting their fingers off several scenes apart because they're not gay. If they cut their fingers off in the same scene, it's gay.
Yeah.
It's filmmaking 101.
Bro code rule 64. Yeah.
Exactly.
And it's a pretty like tough scene to watch. Like I had similar feelings to the last time we watched Harakiri. When he commits harakiri, I was feeling a little nauseous when he cut his pinky off of that last scene. But yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, there wasn't much of a sound when he cut his pinky off.
That's another weird thing about this movie that I think it's maybe kind of a 70s thing of not a whole lot of like shings and tings.
Yeah.
There's a few tings when
swords are clashing.
But like when something goes through something, there's not a lot of like or like whatever noise you make.
Yeah.
It's just like
right,
and they're dead.
Yeah, very very good movie. Highly recommend it. It wasn't available on any streaming services like included with the package that you pay for the subscription. I know it was available to rent on Prime Video. I think it's also
Prime Video.
You probably also rent it on like YouTube as well if you rent movies on YouTube.
Probably YouTube. I think Vudu as well, Apple TV.
Yeah, I guess also depending on where you live, because initially it was going to be an issue of like having to rent two of these movies, and then the third one, Rolling Thunder, was on Tubi, but Taxi Driver is actually just on Canadian Netflix.
Yeah. Not American Netflix.
Yeah, no, it's weird. It's kind of this was kind of something I was thinking about yesterday, just kind of a bit of a tangent. When we watched The French Connection and To Live and Die in LA, we were like, oh, The French Connection's on Canadian Disney Plus. Like, what a weird movie to have on like Disney Plus of all streaming services, which is like full of, kids shit.
Yeah.
And then the other day I was on Disney Plus and I saw they have a bit of a cult cannibal western film called Ravenous on Canadian Disney Plus. And I was like, what the fuck is that doing on Disney Plus?
Hell yeah.
Have you heard of Ravenous?
I feel like I've heard of it. But...
It's like this western cannibal film that has like vague like homosexual undertones throughout like the entire movie.
So Kino is what you're saying.
Maybe I haven't seen it yet. But it's got Guy Pearce in it and David Arquette as well.
Yeah, I've heard of this movie, but I've never seen it.
Yeah, I saw one YouTuber that I watch had talked about it in a video one time, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. But it's a bit of like a cult movie to my understanding, and Yeah. That I saw that on Canadian Disney Plus, and I was like, "What the fuck is that doing next to like Ahsoka and like fucking Cinderella and
Beauty
other
and the
bullshit?"
Beast, yeah.
Beauty and the Beast. um. So yeah, I think that's basically all we have to say about the Yakuza. 35 minutes
Yeah,
in. Still got 2 movies to go.
yeah,
I don't know if we'll have much to say about Taxi Driver, just because it's like one of those movies that like
yeah.
it's a film podcast talking about Taxi Driver, like, how
Come on,
original.
like, uh, daring
Daring
today, are we?
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, Taxi Driver, Martin Scorsese in 1976. It's a masterpiece. It's as good as you think it is. Probably better.
yeah.
It falls into this category of movies along with like Chinatown, of movies that you, based on their reputation, you don't think they'll be as dark as they are, and it is.
Yeah.
I remember I read the script for Taxi Driver. I don't know if I got all the way through it, but I was reading it once, and like Paul Schrader's original script, and it's like even sadder than the movie.
Yeah, you had
Like,
mentioned that, but I still have not read the script.
yeah, I had to find it on some random website or something, and it's kind of like weirdly structured, but I can understand why like Scorsese would have been interested in this.
Mhm.
Um, it's very, it reads almost like kind of like a novel, like a crime novel. I don't know. It was really cool. Um, Apparently, it's loosely based on I want to say Dostoevsky story. Very, very loosely based. I heard about this on this show Rare Candy that I listened to. They had covered Taxi Driver and a Dostoevsky story. Let me see if I can figure that out real
Yeah.
quick here. What was it? I don't know why I just did that. Notes from Underground. Yeah, it was a story called Notes from Underground
Okay.
that apparently is very loose basis for Taxi Driver.
Mhm.
That's Karamazov. Was that Dostoevsky? Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Short story Dostoevsky called Notes from Underground, and apparently it is a loose basis for Taxi Driver.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So
Uh,
apparently there were a lot of people in the 70s that were trying to make Dostoevsky adaptations. De Palma was going to do one. Um, I think there was a movie made called The Gambler, which is based on a Dostoevsky story, I think.
hmm.
Um, yeah, so there was a Dostoevsky kind of resurgence in the 70s. Jordan Peterson would have fit in. That's what I'm saying.
I want to see that. I want to see that movie, Jordan Peterson in the 70s.
And he's got like the Kermit the Frog voice or whatever.
We'll we'll need to work on that.
Yeah, we'll workshop that one.
Yeah. Uh,
Um,
but yeah, no, Taxi Driver. I mean, it's one of those things where like if you haven't seen it, like just watch it.
yeah,
It's really good.
Robert De Niro, the best he's ever looked, the best he's ever been.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think like uh how influential this movie is. Like you don't
Yeah,
really think about it, and then you're like I knew the "Are you talking to me?" scene
yeah, yeah.
when I was like 6. I
Same,
had
yeah.
no clue what the fuck it was
No
from.
clue what it was from. But would
But
have guessed like Scarface or something.
it's
which I still
referenced
haven't seen.
it's referenced in so many like different things
Yeah,
that it's just one of those like cultural things that you talking to me, and I'm pretty sure that's just a thing that De Niro kind of just did off the cuff in that scene.
yeah,
Uh,
something like that. Also has Sybil Shepherd, who plays the his kind of infatuation about the first part of the movie.
yeah, love interest might be
Yeah,
might be a bit of a bit of a stretch there. Obsessionist is
yeah,
probably a better
yeah.
word for that.
And he's caught like a few times, like just sitting in his taxi,
Just like
like
watching her.
just like staring at her.
Yeah. The I think she's like a campaign. She's working on the presidential campaign of this guy who's like Senator Palantine.
Yeah.
And that's just straight up like the inspiration for Palpatine in fucking Star Wars. Like George Lucas is just like, yeah, that's just a Palantine reference.
Yeah. For sure.
But
not gonna quote a source on that because I don't have one.
My source is that I made it the fuck up. It was revealed to me in a dream, and I'm pretty sure I heard him say it in a video one time, like 6 years ago. But,
and also, Palantine is a Democrat, so obviously he's evil.
Yeah, of course, naturally. I really like the scene where it's like Travis essentially he kind of just floats around and doesn't really have any thoughts on anything for most of the movie. Mm-hmm. Until his like really dark thoughts are revealed. Like,
yeah,
his kind of disconnect from the way everyone else thinks about things is manifest in that scene where like he likes I don't even remember what her character's name was. Betsy was her name. He likes Betsy, and Palantine gets in his taxi and he's like, oh, you're Palantine. I tell all the people that go in my taxi to vote for you. And he's like, oh, really? That's great. You know, I've learned more about the working class, more about the working class. You know, traveling in taxis just like this one than I've heard and than I've learned anywhere else or something. And he's like, Travis, what are your thoughts on what needs to be done? And he's like, I think the government needs to come in here and get rid of all this filth and trash and scum.
He just goes full alt-right,
and just insane ramblings. And the funny thing is, like, Palantine is looking at him with like a serious look on his face, but like the guy next to Palantine, like his like, I don't know, fucking secretary or assistant or something, just looks like horrified. He's like, we need to get out of this taxi.
It's like, and we need to round up these homeless people, send them to camps or whatever.
Maybe not in those words, but he essentially just tells him like the government needs to roll through here with tanks and like remove the filth. It makes me sick, the stench of the filth. And it's like, holy fuck, man.
Yeah,
and it's like you look at
out of Bonfire of the Vanities. It feels similar.
you look at Palantine's like political positions that are like vaguely hinted at in the movie, and it's just kind of like, oh, he's a 70s Democrat, he's all about, welfare, and, he's one of those, like, real populist kind of power to the people kind of figures. So,
he's
having...
like, post-FDR Democrats that, like, are all the same, but pretend that they're new.
Yeah. He, oh, shit, what was I gonna say? He... Oh fuck! I had something I was going to say there about Palantine. He kind of represents like the complete opposite of Travis's view, which is like Travis has a very low opinion of the common person, of like the people that he sees on the street every day.
Yeah,
he just kind of is like their filth, their scum, and Palantine, who is like this kind of high up, kind of, I guess you could say, high and mighty sort of politician, who kind of prides himself on probably just pretending to really truly understand the plight of the average person, talks about how great the average people are. And then Travis, who is like not mentally stable at all, but like he sees people on a day-to-day basis, like the kind of people that are just out on the street, and he's like disgusted by them. It's like this sort of like antithetical to everything that he is, and yet he's just blindly saying like, oh yeah, I support you. It's like, why does he support him? I don't know, he likes this girl.
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, that's the guy.
Yeah.
That's the guy reaction. It's like, why do you like this politician? I don't know, I wanted some pussy,
Yeah. Why do you have Stardew Valley installed on your laptop?
Why do you have 30 hours dedicated to Animal Crossing on Nintendo Switch? These are the questions the American people want to know.
And then modern Travis Bickle has his fucking Nintendo Switch in the taxi.
Yeah. When he's like waiting with the meter, he just pulls out the Switch and is playing Animal Crossing. He's like, I don't even fucking know what's going on here.
The scene with Scorsese where he's like in the backseat. He's like, put the fucking Switch away. Put the fucking Switch away.
Yeah.
Did I tell you to take your Switch out? Put the Switch away.
Just sit there, let the meter go up. Yeah, Scorsese makes a Hitchcock cameo in here just to drop the N-word, and it's great.
Yeah, he makes a cameo just to drop the N-word and say he's going to kill his wife.
Yeah.
And
speaking of someone's wife, this movie was edited by Marsha Lucas.
Oh, shoot, George Lucas's wife?
Yeah, George Lucas's wife at the time.
Yeah.
Ex-wife, and this might have been a part of that ex. There is some kind of like tabloid drama that people talk about. At the time, Scorsese was kind of known as a bit of a ladies' man, one might say. Mm-hmm. And Marsha went to work with Marty, and they say some things might have gone down, which is ironic because when Lucas was casting Star Wars, he actually did a joint casting with De Palma for Carrie,
right?
And they were trying to look for like the like the most like beautiful young actresses in Hollywood to play Leia, basically. And Marsha Lucas was a little worried about George being surrounded by all these like hot 18-year-olds or whatever.
Yeah.
And then everyone around George is like just knew like George is like a brain in a basket. Like that's just not how he thinks. Like,
right.
Yeah, but Marsha, however, might have been a little bit more of a concern. So they say.
So they say. It might not be the case. It's always funny to think about like Scorsese being like a ladies' man, because now he's just like a silly little old man.
Yeah. Just silly Uncle Marty, just giving his takes.
But behind every silly old master of cinema is a former sex pest. No. That might
sex pest to master of cinema pipeline do be real.
Holy shit. Not to imply that he's a sex pest in a negative context. The positive kind, you know.
The good kind.
the kind of guy that tells you a story at a party and you're like, whoa, man, that's crazy.
That's crazy, bro. You ever done DMT?
Yeah.
Bernard Herrmann also does the music for this film. Herrmann was Hitchcock's go-to composer.
Was that Sean Connery talking about a composer right there?
Yeah, composed this film, you know.
No, I guess the I don't know if it's an urban legend or if it's just like historical fact that like the night that he finished doing the score for this film was also the night that he died. Because I know he did die.
It says here. I had thought that was De Palma's Obsession, which came out the same year, but I guess not.
Yeah, the urban legend that I had heard was the main kind of like jazzy theme that kind of plays several times throughout Taxi Driver was the recording of that you hear was recorded the night that he died. Like that was the urban legend that I had heard. And I don't know if that's necessarily true, but it is a fact that like he died shortly after finishing composing the film, and the film is dedicated to him, you know, because the music is like a huge part of the atmosphere of this movie.
Yeah, and Herrmann talked about or I guess maybe Scorsese talked about it, but whenever Herrmann got the movie to score it, he watched it or maybe he read the script or something, I don't remember, but even though the movie is like a neo-noir thriller, basically, he scored it like a horror movie.
Yeah. You can definitely tell with that last...
Yeah.
The score in like the last scenes of the movie during like the big shootout and like the showing of the chaos, like that That is just straight up like a horror soundtrack.
Yeah. And he had done like the score for Psycho and a lot of Hitchcock films.
Mm-hmm.
And the other main person to talk about is Jodie Foster, who shows up. I think she shows up briefly, really early on, and then she becomes kind of a main focal point for like the latter half of the movie. She's like 12, I think, when they shot this movie.
Yeah, she she really exploded onto the scene.
Yeah, this was a part of a run of movies she made at like between the ages of like 12 and 14 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It was this Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, which is another Scorsese movie. The Little Girl Who Lives Down the Lane is a pretty skeevy thriller from the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there was one, Bugsy Malone. Bugsy Malone's the other one. Is a kind of a musical with kids playing gangsters. I don't know. I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
She's like one of the best child actors to ever child act.
Yeah.
Like
she's just good.
Yeah, this she plays a child prostitute. I think this came out the same year as Pretty Baby with Brooke Shields as the child prostitute. So
I've not seen that.
I just bought the Kino Lorber of it and it just came in the other day. I might watch it.
Cool.
Sometime soon. So this kind of obsession with children being destroyed by the sexual revolution or whatever in the 70s is kind of in full force. And yeah, she's really good. The kind of pimp that is an interesting story about this character, played by Harvey Keitel. And you pointed this out. He's got this really fucking creepy ass, like, pinky thing. Like, it's like he did his nail, but just the pinky. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, the Coke nail.
The Coke nail, yeah.
Yeah.
And he's got, like, long hair. And it's Harvey Keitel, so he's great. He's like this pedophile pimp.
That also looks just straight up like an actual just hippie from fucking,
yeah,
you know, like just the stereotype of a hippie, but he's like a violent pimp pedophile.
And the interesting thing about this character is Schrader, when he wrote the script, he envisioned this character as black, which would make sense in this situation. But Scorsese decided that in order to get the film to play, they would cast a white guy in the role,
because having the main, like, one of the main bad guys of your movie be like a pedophile pimp black guy.
He didn't want to cause any racial issues for some reason.
For some reason, yeah. I can think of a couple.
Yeah. But I mean, this is a criticism I think Quentin Tarantino has pointed out of, like, yeah, that character should be black. Anyone that has grown up in this area would understand that character is a black guy. Like,
yeah, damn,
yeah, like, and yeah, so that's interesting, and he's fucking creepy. It's horrifying.
Yeah, the scene where he's like dancing with Iris in the room, like, that is the most uncomfortable shit to watch, because it's like, it's not even like he's doing anything like overtly sexual. It's just like a really creepy moment, like just pure manipulation on screen. And it might be one of Harvey Keitel's like best performances. It's just really fucking good.
Yeah, and the fuck, what? I'm losing my train of thought here. Must not have been important. But yeah, and then, like, at some point he, like, Travis, like, shaves his head and has this, like, mohawk, and he's, like, scouting out this I think everyone kind of knows this scene where he's scouting out the fucking Palantine event where you think he's gonna Ronald Reagan him, and
Ronald Reagan him before Ronald Reagan was a politician.
Yes.
I guess before he was running for president. I think he might have been. But he might have been.
He might have been a Democrat at this point.
Ooh.
No, that would have been
no
like
idea.
the 50s. Reagan was a Democrat before.
He was also a Hollywood movie star.
Yes.
But
That's why he was a Democrat, likely.
the Hollywood movie star to Democrat pipeline is actually it's just there's no pipeline. It's the same room.
it's just a room.
Yeah, it's just a room full of Democratic Hollywood stars.
Yes,
but yeah, there's a scene before he shaves his head and goes to a Palatine event where it's the first time he goes to a Palatine event and he sees the Secret Service guy and there's like a weird kind of psychology to the character of Travis where like he's childlike but everything he does is like perverse but he doesn't even know it, like going to a porn theater like every day.
Yeah.
He's not even he's just eating popcorn and candy at like a fucking porno theater, just like what is like what, and then he takes Betsy to he takes Betsy to the movie theater. It's like what are you doing, dude? You're scaring the host. Stop.
You're scaring the host.
So like he shows up at this first event. This is before he shaved his head. And he's like talking to this Secret Service guy, and he's like almost like a child when they when they see like an adult in like a position of like authority or power that they respect, where like the cop is standing there or the Secret Service guy is standing there with his arms crossed, and Travis like kind of walks up beside him, and he's short, like De Niro is tiny.
Yeah.
And he like crosses his arms and he's like looking up at him with like his little De Niro smile. It's like a little child.
He's like the kid in Jaws when he's like aping Roy Scheider.
Kinda, yeah. It's just like that's what I think of when I see that scene. And it's like then he goes pure schizo mode like 20 minutes later, like shaves his head, and he's got like a knife strapped to his boot, and he's got like a gun rail. It's like the Assassin's hidden blade in Assassin's Creed, but just a gun like on his arm, and like all this other crazy shit. And it's funny because he immediately gets scared away when he tries to kill Palatine. Like I don't know, he's like about to do it, and then they see him, and he just bolts. He doesn't like commit to the bit. Yeah.
I just realized that I made that Ronald Reagan joke, and I didn't realize the connection because I feel like I had known this connection.
Jodie Foster, fucking the guy that shot
John Hinckley Jr.
Yeah, who's out of prison now, by the way. I'm pretty sure.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he like has a YouTube channel or something.
Okay.
Me when I make shit up. I think he like writes music or some bullshit.
Yeah, he like reviews video games on YouTube and streams on Twitch.
He's the angry would-be presidential assassin.
Nerd.
That's his YouTube channel.
Yeah. He's real up and coming. You know?
He would have killed it in 2008 YouTube, man.
One of the great content creators of our time, John Hinckley Jr.
Fucking hell, that's so stupid. I like how part of his like prison release, the terms of his release were like you're never allowed to look up things about Jodie Foster on the internet. like he's not allowed to watch Jodie Foster movies. He's not allowed to like look her up on the internet. He's not allowed to like go near her house, which is kind of an obvious one, I guess.
Yeah.
Do you think he's still obsessed with her like decades later?
I mean,
or do you think those were just like to ensure, just for good measure? Like, also, you're not allowed to like watch a Jodie Foster movie ever again.
I like to imagine when like the new True Detective comes out, he's like has to like delete his HBO Max account or something.
Yeah.
It's Jodie Foster supposed to be in it, you know.
Oh, okay.
Anyway.
Yeah, it's just one of those. It's one of those movies where like there's so much to say, and almost all of it has been said a lot already.
Yeah.
So like, what do you say other than to like, you know, it's like a hell of a movie, and you just gotta experience it.
Yeah, and there is this great like he like fucking Batmans up himself and like gets together this like these little like contraptions to pull out a gun from his
sleeve and all that, yeah.
he makes himself like a superhero. Basically, it's kind of interesting that way.
Right.
And so there's that big, like that great shootout scene at the end, which is like super fucking violent.
Yeah,
Like
that
shooting hands off.
the shot where he blows the guy's hand off with the 44 Magnum is just like one of the craziest things like I've ever seen.
Yeah. And
Because you
so
can
what do
witness
you?
the hand explode.
Uh, I heard this on that show I was talking about, Rare Candy.
Yeah.
He was saying that he wasn't sure about that ending of. I think I'm away from my mic here. He was saying he was saying he wasn't sure about that ending where it like has like the voiceover or whatever, and like where everything turns out okay. I think he was thinking it should have just like ended with the shootout.
It should have ended with like the. I think probably my favorite aspect of the shootout is the part immediately afterward. Not even the part where he's like the cops come in and he's like doing the shooting himself in the head with his finger gun thing. It's the part where the camera almost acts as if the scene is like a diorama that is just capturing a moment in time. And the camera is like above the ceiling and it kind of shows the cops all crowding around the door. And then it shows like the carnage down the hallway and down the stairs and out the front.
Mm-hmm.
And like that is just an incredible scene. The way it's shot and the music just being like this same repeating kind of droning like noise. It's so good. Now, I guess there's a lot you could say about the ending of Taxi Driver, like how to interpret it, because Scorsese deliberately kind of made it dreamlike. They also drop a reference to Harry Kilmer from the Yakuza in one of the news clippings on the wall. It was cool. His name popped out on the screen. I was like, holy shit, that's a character from the other movie.
It was like Leonardo DiCaprio in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Right there. Points at the TV.
I can kind of understand not liking the voiceover part. That seems a little. It's a little forced. I could kind of see that, but I do like the ending part where Betsy gets back in his cab and they have that like moment together. But
the interesting part is you don't really see him and her together when they're in the cab. Like you see her just in like as a silhouette behind him, and then her face clearly in the mirror. Very cool way of shooting that scene. But then you do see her quite clearly when she gets out of the cab and she's talking to him by the window, and he gives her the ride for free. And like a lot of it doesn't make sense either, because like it's only been a couple weeks and his hair has grown back to normal. It's not a mohawk anymore. And it's kind of
just even think about that.
It's almost like it's like too good to be true that like, oh yeah, he went in there and killed those guys, you know, without like in any reasonable justice system. If you like, it would be different if they attacked him and he killed them all, but like he just straight up like went in there and murdered everybody. And he's not being prosecuted for it. The parents of Iris write him a letter basically saying like how thankful they are for him for saving their daughter, and you know it's kind of like fulfilling his own view of how things ought to be, where like he was when he was talking to Iris earlier in the movie, and he kind of tells her, you know, you should be home with your parents and going to school and all that, and she calls him a square or whatever. It's like, maybe don't be a 12-year-old prostitute. Like, you know, you ever consider that? Like, and he, I guess that whole ending is almost like a wish fulfillment for Travis. He's on speaking terms with Betsy. He's still driving his taxi around. He saved the day. He's not being prosecuted. But then, like, at the very end, as he's driving away after he drops Betsy off, and he like kind of glances into his mirror, and then he has like this schizo like moment where he looks away and he like looks back at the mirror like very quickly, and he's like readjusting it, and like it's like the if you were to interpret it as real, like that actually is, he did survive and he is, you know, still driving his taxi, like he's still not mentally stable. He's still like, there's still something deep within him that's like clawing out, like to try and get out, I guess, if you were to if you were to think of that as being real. But again, you could also interpret it as just like a dream, like a last moments of his life wish fulfillment kind of thing, like that he's thinking about or whatever. But I honestly have no idea how to interpret it. It's just kind of those are the things that I've heard about the ending.
Yeah. And that's Taxi Driver. It's one of those movies that you got to watch. We said we don't really know what else to say about it, but I think we talked about it for like another 30 minutes.
Yeah, we did. And I guess
we got one last movie here.
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of longer episodes recently, haven't we?
Yeah. We've got Rolling Thunder from 1977, directed by John Flynn, and Paul Schrader co-wrote this with someone named Haywood Gould. I'm not sure who that is, but it is about a POW Air Force major who comes home, which kind of ties it in with like thematic implications in the Yakuza of POWs returning home.
Yeah.
And starring William Devane and Tommy Lee Jones, very young Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah. It's weird to see a young Tommy Lee Jones because he's still got that old man kind of. He's like an eternal old man, but like he looks young. He's like a young old man, and then it's weird.
Yeah.
There's no other way to describe it.
He's never not looked like that scene from No Country for Old Men,
where it's just him sitting. Like, he's always looked like the scene with the newspaper.
Yeah. The meme, basically.
Yeah, exactly. That's the eternal Tommy Lee Jones image. And yeah, this movie goes from like 0 to 100 real fucking quick, because it's like the main character, Charles Rain. I think he comes back from being a POW in Vietnam, which is like one of the worst countries
things to be.
Like in modern warfare, probably one of the worst places to be a POW. Like maybe next to like Imperial Japan, where they'll have a contest to see who can chop off 100 heads first. Like just absolutely just horrible conditions. And it's kind of a part of his character that like he was tortured so much that he, in order to get some sort of small sense of victory in like the 7 years he was a POW, he basically just becomes like a fucking masochist, I guess. He learns to love the pain to win over them, I guess. Yeah. It's like this weird psychological thing with his character. And he comes back, and his wife had like remarried. I don't know, actually, did she remarry, or was she just in a relationship with the guy?
I think she had started seeing the guy, and they were going to get married.
Yeah, what was that guy's name? Fucking. I honestly don't remember.
Looking through the Wikipedia for a name, Cliff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a name. And
unless that's Tommy Lee Jones's character.
No, I don't think so. Tommy Lee Jones was Voden. Johnny Voden.
Right, yeah.
So yeah, she another story, this time with an American instead of a Japanese guy coming back from war to find that his wife is sleeping with another man.
Yeah.
Because she thought he was dead. um, so like he comes back and his son barely recognizes him or doesn't know him because he wasn't there for most of his childhood, and uh, he comes back and there's like this, for some reason, televised event where they like loudly proclaim to the masses that they have gifted to Major Rain 2,555 silver dollars, which is, you know, decent amount of money, especially in the 70s. I think the dollar was a bit stronger, or a lot stronger back then. So it's a good chunk of change.
Silver, so.
Yeah, exactly. Silver dollars, yeah. So the, you know, gifting of those to him by
along with a sweet ass Cadillac, you know.
Oh, they gave him the Cadillac? Oh shit!
Yeah,
you're
apparently
right.
I just read that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's the car he drives for the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
So, the silver dollars are presented to him by this lady who carried like an ID bracelet of that wore an ID bracelet for his entire time he was in Vietnam, and I guess that was a thing that they did back then, because there's a Wikipedia hyperlink to a POW bracelet, which is, I guess, a bracelet that is engraved with the rank, name, and lost date of an American serviceman captured or missing during the Vietnam War. And I guess people would wear those, probably like the movie describes it. I wasn't aware of that being a thing, but that's kind of interesting. So, naturally, having it televised, hey, this you know, war vet who was a prisoner for 7 years or whatever, we've just given him a bunch of silver dollars, and then this like gang of, I don't even know what the fuck they are, like these just hooligans. Maybe hooligans is a bit of a understatement. This like
lollygaggers, you know,
gang of violent ne'er-do-wells, decide they're going to, you know, rob him and take the silver dollars, and he basically just won't budge. He's not telling them anything, and they're like beating him up and trying to torture him because, you know,
he kind of reverts back to his POW. Like
right,
days.
And their torture is not working on him because he's been tortured for 7 years. So like, there's nothing they could do to him that would be worse than what was done to him, unless of course they, you know, kill him. But then they wouldn't get the silver dollars. And like, his wife and child show up at his apartment, and this gang like stick his hand in like the garbage disposal in the sink, and there's not really any noise. There's not really like a violent like squishing noise of his flesh being like mangled, to my recollection.
Yeah. I don't think so.
And he kind of just like, they don't show anything, but you get the full experience of like, you know, this guy's hand is just demolished. It's just gone. And his son tells them where the silver dollars are because he saw him hiding them or whatever, and the gang decides they're just going to kill them all, so they kill his wife and son, and they shoot him, but he survives, and the rest of the movie is kind of just like a revenge tale of him trying to track down this group of violent gang members to kill them, and he kind of takes along the lady that wore his POW bracelet, as well as that guy Cliff kind of also shows up, and he's like trying to get revenge, like in his own little like side quest, I guess. Immediately gets murked, by the way, just fucking dead. Like,
oh yeah,
Cliff gets murdered, and you're like, oh well, that's unfortunate. Wasn't much of a character, so I wasn't particularly sad. I was like, oh fuck, he's dead. There you go.
Yeah.
I mean, once you've got wife and child murder in the movie, like you can't really be shocked by
some
side piece getting killed.
Side piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the Schraderverse is a series of revenge movies. I don't know if we made that clear until now, but
Yeah.
um,
We forgot to reference that this was like a revenge trilogy, and we just called it the Schraderverse.
yeah.
uh,
um,
yeah, the rest of the movie is honestly it's probably the most straightforward of the three movies because
yeah, yeah,
most of the runtime post like him getting shot and surviving the coma that he's put in is just him and her name is Linda, the lady that was wearing his POW bracelet. Them kind of traveling to try and find where this group of criminals are, and he eventually does track them down, and this starts like the funniest, like most insane final shootout of the movie, where like he's at Tommy Lee Jones's character's house, and Tommy Lee Jones's character's family, they're just all like really boring people. They're just hanging around like, oh hey there, what's your like they're like, oh, you're a friend of Johnny or whatever.
It's literally that SpongeBob like fucking wonderful weather we're having, eh?
Yeah, his family's very boring. See you later. And they're like dressed up in their like military uniforms and stuff. And they're like, oh, we're gonna go out, and they're like, where are you going? He's like, oh, out. That's where I'm going out. And they've tracked the gang down to this like brothel or whatever, and I guess the plan was to have Johnny go in and like meet up with one of the prostitutes and like go up to her room, and then he would start and then the main character, Major Rain, would start the shootout downstairs. And then when Johnny would hear the firing downstairs, he would take his gun out. Or do they both come upstairs?
No. He's upstairs, so Johnny's upstairs. Rain heads upstairs and does this tapping thing outside of his door with his gun to signal to Voden that like time to get ready.
Yeah. And then he goes into the room. Fired, yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I remember this now. He goes into the room where...
And then the best line in the movie happens.
Yeah,
shots are fired. He pulls up his Tommy Lee Jones pulls up his gun. The prostitute's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" He's like, "I'm gonna kill a bunch of people."
Yeah, I'm gonna kill a bunch of people. It's just such a
good,
so deadpan when he says it too. Like he's just matter of factly like, "I'm gonna kill a bunch of people," and
as like he's saying like, "I'm going out to dinner," like or like like he just said, "We're going out." Like he says in the same tone. I'm going to kill a bunch of people. So good.
At this point, they're murdering like every able-bodied patron in the bar, like just murdering everybody in the building, just killing all of them,
except for the prostitutes. He spares them.
Yeah, they're not killing them, but like at the same time, like how many of the people in this brothel are like actual members of this gang, and how many are just Americans that are packing heat, thinking they're about to be murdered, that are like trying to defend themselves? Like
they don't care.
They're just killing everybody, and
they're just killing a bunch of people.
Yeah, they just start murdering everybody. It's like, oh my, this is incredible, and like they're getting shot. Like both of them take like several shots to like the stomach and like the arm, and they're still going, and they kill everybody, and it's a very bloody, violent sort of climax to the film. And unlike Taxi Driver and unlike the Yakuza, which have like the big climactic battle and then a post-battle scene where like plot points are resolved, characters have shown either some sort of growth or like you are still questioning them as a character, this movie ends with them murdering everybody, and then the credits are rolling over footage of them staggering out of the building.
Yeah, I know writers who use epilogues, and they're all cowards.
Yeah, literally, just it is what people wanted the ending of Taxi Driver to be. Of like, he kills all the pimps and I think he even kills like a client of Iris or whatever, and like if that movie had just ended with that shootout. but like
Yeah.
that's this movie.
That's
It's
this
just
movie, yeah.
this movie just ends with the shootout, and then they're like, "Well, we killed them. Let's leave now. Let's go home."
I've heard this described as this kind of John Carpenter, Howard Hawks kind of end of story, end of movie kind of ending, which is like so cool when it works. It's like, yeah, I'm not gonna like give you the little epilogue to see where everyone went. Don't care. Movie's over. This is the story.
Did Johnny and Major Rain die? Maybe they had a lot of bullet wounds, but as far as you're concerned,
they're not gonna make it far alone.
As far as you're concerned, as soon as I said cut and the movie ended, they ceased to exist, so it doesn't matter. The movie's over. I think of the three movies, it's my least favorite, but not because it's bad. It's actually really good. But I really like Taxi Driver, and surprisingly, I think the Yakuza might be my favorite of the three. That's not to say that Taxi Driver isn't like Martin Scorsese's best movie.
Yeah.
But I think aesthetically speaking, I really resonated with the Yakuza. I thought it was really good.
I think Taxi Driver is the best movie. The Yakuza was the most surprising, and Rolling Thunder has the best ending.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Dave Rubin style. I agree with that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Pulling a Dave Rubin reference here in 2023.
I wonder what he's up to. Actually, I don't.
He's still going. I watched a couple videos he put out. He's not bad. It's just kind of the same.
The regressive left is going crazy.
He's not quite. It's not quite that. He's just more like just mask off conservative at this point.
Okay, fair enough.
Which is a bit more respectable, to be quite honest.
I think a Dave Rubin reference was not on my sense of like bingo card today.
Yeah. We got.
Here we are.
We actually did make a Star Wars reference. So we made Star Wars, SpongeBob,
several SpongeBob
and now Dave
references. Yep.
Rave Dubin showing up.
A lot of predictable references made in this episode.
Yeah. Some giggles in the middle there. I think this is a good return with a V to podcasting.
Yeah, for sure.
So the Yakuza, Taxi Driver, Rolling Thunder, all great movies. You should watch them.
Yep, Rolling Thunder is on Tubi, so
yeah.
Tubi constantly being vindicated as the greatest streaming service on the planet.
Yeah.
Just consistently the best shit ever on there.
Like just weird ass shit. They've got like kind of shitty original things, and then they have like the best old movies just randomly.
I noticed there was a couple William Castle horror movies on there. And I watched The Tingler the other day. And holy shit, was it ever funny.
Is that with Vincent Price?
It is, yeah. He plays like this weird, like borderline sociopathic doctor who's just like studying the mechanics of fear, and like the entire premise of the movie is that like there is a thing in your spine that feeds off of your fear called the tingler, and like the way to suppress the tingler's feeding on your fear is to scream. Like the sound of your scream, it like stops the tingler. So like he finds this deaf mute lady and keeps scaring the shit out of her, and she can't scream. And then her tingler grows into like this giant like alien slug creature.
Yeah.
It's fucking crazy. Just throwing in a tingler review at the end of this. It was funny as hell.
I love that William Castle movies on Wikipedia have a whole section devoted to gimmicks. That's what William Castle was doing.
He was just a very gimmicky guy, yeah.
He had offered a $1,000 life insurance policy against death by fright for Macabre, and sent a skeleton flying above the audience heads in the auditorium in House on Haunted Hill. gimmicks for
They also have House on
added.
Haunted Hill on Tubi as well, and I believe they
Yeah, House
have
of Haunted Hill is pretty good.
they have two versions of it, to my understanding. They have the original, and then they have like a
Yeah, there's a
colorized
remake. Yeah.
version. Well, they don't have.
Oh,
I don't think they have
okay.
the remake, but they have a colorized version of the Vincent Price movie.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It works black and white. I just watch it there.
Yeah. No,
Um,
I would prefer the black and white one. Like I've seen people talk about the colorized version of Night of the Living Dead, and I think I just
mhm.
prefer to watch it in black and white.
Yeah. For the Tingler, this is funny. The gimmick was they added attached electrical buzzers to the underside of some seats in the theater,
Yeah.
and they would provide tingling sensations during certain scenes.
Yeah, exactly. And the way that the movie starts is William Castle comes out onto the screen, and he's like, "Hello, I'm William Castle, the director of this motion picture, and
Yeah.
today you are going to be viewing this movie, The Tingler, and some of you in the audience may be more perceptive to tingling sensations than the other. And if at any point during this movie you feel the tingling sensation of the tingler, all you need to do to alleviate this sensation is to scream." So it's like the theater is just like popping off with occasionally some woman just screaming.
Yeah.
We need more
William
gimmicks in movie theaters because that sounds
Yeah.
fucking hilarious.
We return is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
William Castle actually produced Rosemary's Baby,
Okay.
which is pretty interesting. He was originally going to direct it, but then he saw like Roman Polanski's work, who was like Bob Evans' top director, that he wanted to do it,
And he let him cook.
and Castle was like, "Yeah, that's fucking amazing. He's going to direct." Anyway, a little bit of film history out of the way there. I think we will wrap it up. We'll
Yep.
be back next week with something. Not sure what, but it'll be dope.
Yeah.
Talk to you next time.
Yep. See you later.